here we are in yet another Archetype rematch volume. This one is volume 14 if I am correct, and yeah, I'm correct, it's volume 14. We have lots of new cards we had to take a look at, lots of new entries and lots of new surprises for everyone, including myself. So let's kick off this video with the first archetype that actually got some new support, that being the red archetype, aka Red Dragon Archfiend. We're starting off with Vision Resonator, and despite it being a fantastic 5Ds reference and the proof that Konami is just twisting my nuts and seeing how far it can actually go, it's a really good card. It's easy special summoning condition and a floating effect which searches the archetypal back row, which were not too searchable previously, so you should absolutely run at least 2 of them, if not 3. And the next one is Soul Resonator. This one is a level 3 tuner as opposed to the previous one, which was level 2. And besides being searchable with Tour Guide, it's another searcher which fetches you a rather wide range of monsters and protects you from destruction by banishing itself from the graveyard, so yeah, run any number of these. And then the last card is, the last monster I should say, is the newly released Synchro monster from the Jack Atlas structure deck, Scar Red Dragon Archfiend, a retrain of the original, which essentially is a more aggressive version of Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon, the same kind of retrain that Stardust Dragon got last time, which I talked about, I think it was in the previous volume, I can't remember, which in addition to an easy field nuke gives you another Synchro to work with, so yeah, it's definitely worth running. And I would highly appreciate Stardust Dragon retrain of the same caliber, maybe more focused more on a protection effect, because Stardust Dragon has that as its initial gimmick. And yeah, I'd really like to see maybe a Yusei themed structure deck, or maybe an Aki themed structure deck, or perhaps both, like that dual structure deck that they did with Yuya and Reiji, where you could essentially play them separately or combine them into one deck. I thought it was cool, and I think it's worth revisiting. Anyway, last card is the Continuous Trap Red Zone. And yeah, it offers spot destruction, but I honestly wished it also negated the effect which triggered it, and while its second effect is something that's not triggered very often, it's overall nice to have, so I definitely recommend at least 1 or 2 of these, maybe leaning more on the 1, so yeah. And next up, the next archetype, we have a whole bunch of cards as the Earthbound Servant line from Arc 5 that was used by the Russian guy, Sergei, I think it was called. Yeah, the mercenary from the Synchro Dimension. Anyway, those whole bunch of stuff got adapted into real cards, and it makes the Earthbound Immortals debut on this sub-series. So yeah, let's take a look at it. First up, we have Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper. A very simple play starter and a very potent 1-for-1 target, making it a 3-off staple in this sub-archetype. And also its protection effect should have been a lingering effect, just saying that now, because in the form it is right now, it barely ever matters, because yeah, it's not very good. Anyway, then we have the next tuner, which is Earthbound Prisoner Linewalker. Not as great as the previous card because its search range is supremely limited with only 2 spells as target, 2 specific spells mind you, and its second effect is borderline stupid. I wouldn't run it at any more than 1. Yeah, sure, another tour guide target if we're really stretching it, but yeah. Then we have Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper. Ensures that you will always be able to go into one of the boss monsters of this sub-series of Earthbounds, even if you don't have immediate access to the tuners due to its very practical effects, which many archetypes wish they had, so yeah, this one's very good. Next up we have our first extra deck monster, Earthbound Servant Geo Gremlin. And its first effect is something you should never ever consider relying on for monster removal, given how letting the opponent pick usually doesn't tend to end favorably for you, but its second effect is great for letting you get to the archetype's boss monster, which we'll talk about soon. I have like a feeling that the first effect has something to do with the other synchro. Well, you know, there are a grand total of 3 synchros in this sub-archetype, and only 2 of them got printed. Earthbound Servant Gremlina was one of the other synchros, and that one is not printed as of yet and is still an anime exclusive. I wonder if the first effect has something to do with Gremlina, which is currently missing, but yeah, this is all we have apparently. And then the other synchro is Earthbound Servant Griffon, which is level 8 as opposed to the previous one, which was level 6. And another synchro with unconventional effects. And yeah, while revival is good, this archetype doesn't benefit much from doing it during the opponent's turn, and while the spot removal in the second effect is also good, it is usually something not worth making a level 8 synchro for. I know why it's there, but the synergy is on very flimsy legs, as we'll see later on. Then we have the first fusion, Earthbound Servant KRAKEN, another level 8. And compared to the synchros, this one is actually really good, as it searches any field spell from the deck or graveyard and can act as a hard once per turn pseudo Nibiru, which is really good. And the summoning condition is super generic. You can even use Earthbound Immortals like the original ones to summon it, to maybe get some mileage out of them. So yeah, just saying. And then we have the last monster of this batch, Earthbound Servant Geograsha. Its first effect is not too impressive, but its second effect turns any spot removal card into a field nuke, which is mighty impressive. And its third effect is some decent floating, however, running more than one of them is not advisable, as it's a bit difficult to summon, as it requires an Earthbound Fusion and an Earthbound Synchro monster as material, which is supremely annoying. But yeah, anyway, this is a great card, but at not more than one. Then we have the new archetypal field spell, Earthbound Prison. An absurdly strong field spell for no good reason and absolutely worth maxing out on. And the last card the archetype has is Harmonic Synchro Fusion. The most unique fusion spell and extra deck enabler in general, as you're essentially swapping 2 monsters for a synchro and a fusion monster. This card definitely has potential to become a threat with some future broken targets it can get you. So yeah, this was the new Earthbound support wave, and to be honest, I'm quite surprised that they actually printed this sub-series of cards. I was actually kind of surprised to see them in Arc 5, but yeah, Arc 5 in general, besides being a colossal Mirai Nikki clone, is a huge celebratory series from all of the series, so it wasn't out of place, but still. Yeah, these are some good cards, and it pushes the Earthbounds from somewhat unplayable to marginally more playable than they were before, so yeah, you have that at least. Anyway, then we have the next archetype which received support in form of one card is the Gaia archetype, with the synchro monster Gaia Blaze, the Force of Blazing Sun, which is a double attacker with a slightly stricter condition than its competition, which feels more like an INFERNO card than a Gaia card due to its floating effect, run by preference. Then we have the next archetype which received new support, which is the Dark World archetype with 2 new cards. A fusion monster, Colorless Chaos King of Dark World, which came out in the Animation Chronicle 2023, or will be coming out. And it's actually an interesting case, as this monster appeared in GX, well, not appeared, it was mentioned in GX, but was never actually summoned, because before it could be summoned, the duel ended right then and there. So it's cool we're getting these monsters which were implied to exist, but didn't make the cut due to how the duel transpired. Anyway, it's a boss monster which nukes the field on summon, gets a significant attack boost based on the investment you made to summon him, and offers decent protection to any card of your choice, essentially making him similar to Stardust Spark Dragon. However, it would be an auto-include if it didn't require the original Rainbow as material instead of the retrain we got in the structure deck. But yeah, hey, I mean, Fusion Conscription is still a thing, so it's not too bad, so yeah, definitely worth running in my opinion. And then we have Dark Corridor, which is an archetypal E-Call, so yeah, do I need to explain anything further? You run 3 of these and you would essentially run 4 if you could. Anyway, next up we have a few more one-off cards. First up, which is Phoenix Gearblade, which is the only support card for the Gearfried archetype. I think they're actually making their debut on this series with this single card. And if it is a debut, then, well, what a debut it is, because this is essentially a spiritual successor to the old Phoenix Blade and an absurd OTK enabler to any fire or warrior deck, making it at least worth considering. And then we have the very cleverly named Pot of Grade. Get it? Anyway, it's the new Jar support card in the family of Morphing Jar, Cyber Jar, Morphing Jar 2 and all those. Anyway, it's an okay-ish card, nothing too special besides being a simpler to use Mega Zaborg, so yeah, run by preference. Next up we have the Altergeists, which received new support with 3 new cards. All of them are monsters. No, 4 new cards, 3 of them are monsters and a new trap card. The first one being Altergeist Perinetrator, which is, yeah, while the first effect is admirable, you're never ever going to use it. However, the second effect more than makes up for it, making this a welcome addition to the deck. Then we have Altergeist Malwisp, and it's a fantastic extender which builds up field presence even more, so definitely worth running at 2 or 3. Then we have their newest Link monster, Altergeist Adminia, which has firewall link arrows, and it's a trap searcher that can also steal the opponent's monsters, which sounds cool, yes, but not something to max out on. If it was 1 or 2 links lower, it would have been even better, but it's still far from their worst monsters, so yeah, run a copy or 2 if you feel like it. And their newest trap is Altergeist Revitalization. Its first effect is nice, but its graveyard effect is even better, making it the prime foolish burial goods target in the deck. But unlike that trap card, the new trap card for Code Talkers, Code Hack, makes literally no sense. This card legitimately baffles me. Like, its first effect literally does nothing overall, and its second effect has a very pointless attack boost. And yeah, unless I'm missing something, feel free to ignore this one. And from one Cyberus archetype into another, we go from Code Talkers to Salamangrates, which received some really nice support as well, starting with Salamangrate of Fire. A simple searcher and an undisputed 3-off. The second effect will rarely ever go off, but it's there if you wanna try something silly. Salamangrate Weasel, again, its other effect will rarely go off, but because it's a really good extender, I'd say that it's a welcome choice in the deck. Then we have Salamangrate Tiger, again, what a wonderful name that is. Once again, a stellar choice for any kind of Salamangrate deck, so it's heavily recommended. And because these two were tuners, we obviously have their newest Synchro monster, Salamangrate Burst Griffin. It's a very elaborate setup for the payoff of summoning any monster from your graveyard, which is admirable, but it's way too slow for this kind of archetype. And their last monster is Salamangrate Raging Phoenix. Much better than the previous card, and it can reach some respectable attack values, so it's a welcome addition. Their only spell card is Salamangrate Charge, a quick play, which allows for revival, recycling, and spot removal in one card, and on quick play speed, and yeah, no reason not to run 2 or 3 of these. And their last card is Salamangrate Revive, a Call of the Haunted which occasionally raises the attack of the monster via recycling, so it makes it another good choice. And then we have another one-off support card, which is Hita the Fire Channeler, the new support card for the Charmer archetype. And it's the exact same thing as the Wind Channeler I covered in one of the previous volumes, only for fire monsters, so I won't spend much of your time here. And now we move on to another hefty support lineup for the Supreme King archetype, and Odd Eyes to an extent. We start off with Supreme King Dragon Lightworm. As opposed to Darkworm, who focuses on generating new resources, this one focuses on working with what you already have. So if you run one, you run the other, but if you only care about one, I'd still stick with Darkworm over this thing. Then we have Supreme King Gate Magician. It offers a form of protection for Zarg that he himself is lacking, although I would much appreciate if it also offered tributing protection. And his monster effect, it helps set up the graveyard for the summon of a Great Behemoth, making him a 3-off. And then we have the retrain of Supreme King Zark, Supreme Celestial King Odd Eyes Arc-Ray Dragon. Holy shit, what a long name. Anyway, this one is completely up to preference because he mainly serves as a pendulum juggler as opposed to being a great boss monster like the OG, so I would say run by preference. Then we have the Quick Blade, the Light Winged Dragon. It provides searching or special summoning from the deck on quick play speed again, so naturally you run 3 for a reason. Pendulum Evolution, besides being named as the booster set, it's fine but a bit unnecessary as it exists only to secure you have a Chronograph Sorcerer or Astrograph Sorcerer, which recently came to back to limited, or the new Magician at your beck and call, and allows you to keep going with your combos a bit longer. Run one at most because it's not very searchable. Then we have Soul of the Supreme King, an archetypal fusion trap which makes getting to your Zark even easier and allows you to summon him as an interruption, which is quite a huge plus in my book. Miracle of the Supreme King, which is their last trap card, it offers 3 effects with 2 of them being very preference based and the third one being really good. With the downside that you need to have Zark on the field to use it. Run by preference, and yeah, that's about the only thing I can really say about it now. And that does it for the Zark archetype when it comes to support. Now we move on to another archetype which debuts on today's volume, those being Evols, the evolution dinosaur / reptile archetype. The first card we have today is Evoltile Forest. Besides having a rather outdated form of protection, it has also 2 other effects which are rather meh for the game's current environment. The back row search is the superior effect here, but not by much. Then we have Evolsaur Rios, which you really can see with this guy that they're trying to fix the archetype's problem of not having enough ways to access their higher rank Xyz monsters, and it really does. And this guy does things reasonably well, so you run at least 2 of these if you care about the rank 6 lineup in this deck, because again, this is the archetype from where Logia and Dolka come from, so yeah. Anyway, then we have their newest rank 6 monster, Evolzar Raz, who might be related to Field Commander Raz, I don't know. Anyway, it's Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss in rank 6 form and a slightly more specific activation condition. It works, but Evols have a tricky time, like I said, getting to their rank 6 lineup, but when they do, it's really good. Definitely worth a spot in your extra deck if you're focusing on the rank 6 aspect of this archetype. And from one debuting archetype into another, Phantom Beasts have debuted in this series as well. And they're starting off with the retrain of Gazelle, the King of Mythical Beasts. We have Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws. It does its job as a fusion enabler, but I think this batch of cards exists more as a prototype for the brand new Illusionist monster type. Much like the rest of the ill-fated archetype, it offers very minimal synergy with other cards. Then we have Cornfield Coadder, which is our first Illusionist monster which we're featuring on the channel. And it's a discardable searcher for this very small bunch of cards and an okay graveyard protection effect. Again, it doesn't do much due to the core archetype's lack of playstyle, but yeah, this subline can find some use for him, no doubt about that. Same can be said about Mirror Swordsman, another Illusionist monster. Similar protection and search effect, meaning you run it as much as the previous card. Then we have a retrain of Berfomet the Great Wings. Arguably even better searcher than Gazelle, so absolutely no reason not to run it in a deck focused on this batch of cards. And now we move on to the first fusion, which is a retrain of Chimera, the King of Mythical Beasts. No, the Flying Mythical Beasts, sorry. Chimera the Phantom Beast King. Its first effect is something I would have considered really good if it didn't apply during the end phase, and the second effect is the upgraded form of the OG Chimera's floating effect. So yeah, this is a definite replacement, seeing how it also shares the Phantom Beast name changing if you care about the synergy with the rest of the cards. But anyway, then we have the other bigger fusion boss monster, Chimera the Illusion Magical Beast. I didn't mention it by now, but why do all the illusionist monsters from this batch have the Abrolhos the Mega Quake effects? It's like very out of place for this playstyle for a battle heavy archetype such as the Phantom Beasts, even though the battle oriented nature is not the best in this set of cards. But other than that confusion, it's a really beefy beat stick and the definitive Phantom Beast boss, so yeah. And their last card is their archetypal fusion spell, Chimera Fusion. So yeah, it's their archetypal fusion spell. You run 3 of these because yeah, it's also in quick play speed. So yeah, it's a definite staple in the deck. Then we have another one-off support card for the Token Celebration archetype with first purchase of the year. Yeah, just like the rest of this so-called archetype, this is thematically very cute, but in practice it sucks ass, so don't run it. Then we have another beefy support line with Volcanics, who are also making this their debut on this sub-series. And yeah, we start off with the level 1 Volcanic Rimfire. I would have loved it if the first effect let you proc the effect of Scatter Shot because of how easy it is to trigger it, but it can help in other ways as well. And the second effect also provides decent recovery in its own way. This is a solid 3-off. Then we have Volcanic Trooper. This is a very long overdue replacement for a Volcanic Blaster, and while its second effect is something that doesn't come up very often, it can occasionally combo well with Scattershot. Volcanic Emperor, their newest boss monster, is a bit easier to summon than the OG Doomfire, but at the cost of having a slightly weaker effect in my opinion. It also fetches Volcanic Trap cards, of which the archetype has a grand total of 3 of them, with one only being a remotely worth it, and so yeah, run by preference. And then we move on to the back row. We have another retrain of Blaze Accelerator, that being Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. It's a very debatable choice, really. It was made way more searchable and allowed for both field presence and graveyard setup at the cost of limiting you to using only level 1 monsters for your pop effects, meaning that you can't use Scattershot, run by preference, really. Then we have Fire Ejection, which I honestly thought when I first read the card out loud that the name was Fire Ejaculation. And considering that what is going on in the artwork, yeah, it was a very safe assumption to believe it was named this way. Anyway, it's another very preference-based card, seeing how you usually use something like this to finish off limping opponents, so meaning you usually run it at 1 max. Then we have our first trap, Volcanic Inferno. Recovery and monster effect negation all in one neat little package, and it's also very searchable, so run 2 at least. And by very searchable, I mean only Emperor can search it, so yeah, if you run Emperor, you do definitely run at least 2, if not 3 of these. And the last card is Volcanic Emission. It's okay, but again, a completely variable choice to run, seeing how not all Volcanic decks focus on the boss monsters, and the second effect is a worse version of Fire Ejection. And that does it for Volcanics. It's a pretty strong support wave, and I honestly think that the deck will actually spike up in usage because of these new additions to the archetype, mainly Rimfire and yeah, Volcanic Trooper can also provide some very good searching, and Emperor here and there can provide some decent searching and field presence as well. And Inferno is also a very nice addition to the archetype. So yeah, it's a really nice and compact, strong showing from Volcanics. Now we have the last support waves with 4 one-off support cards for 4 different archetypes. The first one being Arcana Force, with Arcana Force 15, the Fiend. So yeah, why not just call it the Devil like the actual Arcana card, but whatever. Anyway, it has the exact same heads and tails effects as in the anime, but it also has an additional effect where it can be discarded to search Light Barrier from your deck or graveyard, making it an imperative to run at 3. And yeah, then we have the new Crystal Beast support card, the Equip Spell Golden Rule. Crystal Beasts were on such a roll the last time I talked about them when it came to strong support cards, and this card continues the flow. If you could run 5 of these, you most definitely would. The semi-final archetype on the platter today is the Barian archetype with the quick play spell 7th Force. It's rank up magic, the 7th one, with a somewhat more generic activation condition and provides some neat searching. Definitely run a copy or 2. And the final archetype we're taking a look at today is the Fusion archetype with the spell card Fusion Reinforcement. It's a nice addition for any deck that revolves around monsters which require specific extra deck monsters in order to be summoned. Combined with Fusion Tag, it can make the summon procedures of certain monsters very easy, and that's why you run it. And that does it for this archetype rematch. It was definitely a blast, and yeah, it was. I think it was one of the shorter episodes I've ever done, and yeah, I really like this edition. I like the majority of these support waves are actually really good. I really like the new Volcanic cards. Salamangreats are very strong. The Dark World's got 2 very strong cards. The new red cards are amazing. I really wish that Vision Resonator is foreshadowing for the eventual new Fortune Lady support. Preferably a whole bunch of new extra deck monsters, maybe a few retrains here and there. And yeah, overall this was one of my favorite volumes to record up until now. So stay tuned until volume 15, whenever that one might drop. Anyway, that does it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more Red Book news and updates. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you all next time.